Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're a CPA, I'm willing to bet you know the feeling of being completely swamped. But what if all that busyness isn't actually growing your firm? Well, today, in the CPA's Guide from Busy to Balanced, we're going to dig into how firms can totally flip their operations and get back their most precious resource, time. Does this sound familiar? We're just too busy. It's probably the number one thing you hear from any partner at a CPA firm, right? It feels like this permanent state of being. But what if it's not? What if that one simple phrase is actually the key to a huge strategic change? So what does busy really mean day to day? Well, it's that never-ending hamster wheel, isn't it? It's the payroll runs, it's chasing down invoices, it's putting out fires with staff, and fixing all those little errors that just seem to eat up the entire day. These things fill up the calendar, for sure, but they don't build the business. And here is the absolute kicker. The great irony here is that while you're drowning in all this work, the firm is basically standing still. You're in maintenance mode, not growth mode. And that's the real problem we're going to unpack today, being busy with the wrong stuff. Okay, so let's get right to the heart of it. The issue isn't really the amount of work you have, it's the type of work. And, understanding that difference is really the first big step toward building a firm that's not just profitable, but balanced. Look at this slide. It lays it out perfectly. You've got two buckets of work. On one side, you have the high-value stuff that actually pushes the firm forward, strategic planning, developing new services, real client advisory. And on the other side, you've got the essential tasks that just keep the lights on, things like payroll and AP. You need both, obviously, but only one of them is building your future. So you're probably asking, where do I even start to change this? Well, the research is pretty clear. Payroll is the perfect first domino to topple. It's one of the most time-sucking, least strategic things you do, which makes it the best candidate to hand off first. It's your starting line for getting some operational freedom back. But let's pause for a second and ask, how does something that seems so routine, like payroll, turn into this massive roadblock for a growing firm? I mean, on the surface, it sounds simple, but the reality is way, way more complicated. The truth about doing payroll in-house is that it's a massive juggling act. Every client has different rules. You're constantly trying to keep up with compliance updates. You've got these insane deadlines every single cycle, and there is absolutely zero tolerance for mistakes. It's this high-stress pressure cooker that always ends up pulling in your senior people, even partners, to do reviews. It's a total drain on your best talent. And here's the bottom line. All of that means payroll quietly becomes a capacity blocker. It puts a hard ceiling on your growth. It limits how many new clients you can realistically take on, holding you back without bringing in the kind of revenue that justifies all that effort. Okay, so how do you smash through that ceiling? The answer lies in strategically outsourcing these bottlenecks. And we're going to look at how this works, especially with the powerhouse that is the India accounting services market. So why India? Simple. It's become a global hub for exactly this kind of work. We're talking about access to a massive talent pool of professionals who are already up to speed on US accounting standards and all the major software tools. And that time zone difference, that's a huge bonus. Work literally gets done overnight while you sleep. But the really crucial thing to understand here isn't just about saving a few bucks. It's about getting access to flexible, scalable talent. Just think about it. You could ramp up your capacity for tax season and then dial it right back down, all without the risk and overhead of hiring full-time staff. It's like having agility on demand. All right, so we've talked about the what and the why. Now let's get into the how, because this smart operating model is really the secret sauce to making this whole thing work smoothly. This chart breaks it down perfectly. Your team, your in-house experts, they stay in the driver's seat. They manage the client relationship, they handle the strategy, and they review the final reports. Meanwhile, your offshore partners do the heavy lifting, the processing, the compliance checks, the report preparation. It's a true partnership. And this right here is the main takeaway of this whole model. You are not losing control. You're not giving up ownership. You are gaining operational leverage. That's the ability to get way more done with the team you already have, effectively multiplying your firm's output without multiplying your headcount. A funny thing happens once firms solve that payroll problem. Almost immediately, they spot the next time-sucking black hole, accounts payable. It's the same story all over again. A whole bunch of repetitive, process-heavy tasks that are quietly eating up hours that your skilled people could be spending elsewhere. So let's zoom out and see how all these pieces come together to reach that ultimate goal. This is where we get to see the real transformation.
The big shift from being a constantly busy firm to a strategically balanced one.
The old way of thinking about growth is a trap, right? More clients just means more work, which leads to more stress. But the new, balanced equation completely shatters that cycle. Now, more clients are supported by your scalable outsource capacity, which means your internal team's workload stays manageable and they can focus on what they do best. This is a really profound shift in mindset. You stop being a manager of people who's constantly putting out fires, and you become a manager of smooth, predictable processes. And that means you're no longer reacting to problems every day. You're building systems that stop those problems from ever happening. That's how you scale for real. Okay, let's just address the elephant in the room. This is the number one fear I hear about outsourcing, this idea that you're automatically sacrificing quality just to save money. But is that really true?
Well, here's the surprising truth. It's often the exact opposite. See, the best outsourced partners live and breathe by their systems. They rely on documented workflows and standard operating procedures. And that forces you to get your own house in order, turning those informal, we've always done it this way habits into a solid, scalable process. The result is almost always fewer mistakes and way better consistency across the board. We have covered a ton of ground here, from pinpointing the real problem to breaking down a really powerful solution. So let's wrap it all up with the final, most important takeaway. At the end of the day, it all boils down to this. The biggest challenge for CPA firms today isn't finding clients, it's finding the bandwidth to serve them well. Strategic outsourcing lets you finally break out of that work harder trap and start working smarter, putting your firm's best energy where it'll make the biggest impact. So I'm going to leave you with this one last thought. Forget about just surviving tax season. I want you to imagine what your firm could really achieve. The new advisory services you could launch, the strategic growth you could drive. What could you build if you got all of that time and energy back? Really think about it. What would you do?